Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Outbreak.
I honestly don't really know where to start with this one. Pathologic 2 might be my favorite piece of media ever, and I don't say that lightly. It single-handedly inspired me to create this YouTube channel, and I've been terrified to make a video on it ever since, because I feel like no matter what I say, I won't do it the justice it deserves. This game got into me, under my skin, into my veins. I have never been so immersed or engrossed, and I like to think of myself as a experienced gamer. Maybe it's because I finally sat down and played this thing when I really needed the escape. Much like how Contagion was the top movie on Netflix at the beginning of the pandemic, I first played through Pathologic when it felt like the whole planet was on the brink of collapsing. I chose to escape into a world where things seemed far worse, and while of course that's not true, Pathologic is a video game after all, it helped me shut out the uncertainty and anxiety surrounding everything at the time, by making me feel anxious and uncertain about what was happening in this small fever dream of a village instead. Now, let's rip the band-aid off. I love this game, but the optimization is questionable. When I started this playthrough to get footage for this video, I was taken aback by how bad the game was performing. I don't remember it being this bad the last time I played through the game, but here we are. For me, there were two key changes that I made to fix this. Firstly, make sure you install the game on an SSD. If you don't have an SSD, your mileage may vary. Secondly, you can vastly improve your frame rate by adding or editing 2 lines to a config file. Thanks to this trusty Steam guide, shout out to Volmer for making this, the link's in the description, I swear to God, this may as well be magic. I was super skeptical when I initially tried this, but it totally worked. My frame rate on max settings doubled, if not tripled, for next to no discernible drop in quality. What do these changes do? I have no idea.
This just works.
Okay, with all of that out of the way, what even is Pathologic 2? Well, for one, it's a video game.
Ha! Fuck you!
Seriously though, trying to describe how this game changed my perception of what video games could even be is incredibly difficult. Mostly because it doesn't fit into any one genre nicely. Pathologic 2 is a game about failure, and perseverance in the face of failure. This game will confront you with your own morality. There's no karma or alignment that tells you whether you did a bad thing. It's just your decisions. It'll ask you how far you're willing to go. What are you willing to do to save the people you care about? It'll put you in the shoes of an average person, in a horrible situation, and task you with not only your own survival, but the survival of everyone around you. You inhabit the role of Hbomberguy, a studying surgeon returning to his hometown after being summoned by an ominous letter from his father. As soon as he steps off the train, Hbomberguy is immediately jumped by 3 men. Word is, there's a murderer on the loose, and these fellas, well, they think it's you. So, one broken shiv in the ribs later, and our boy Hbomberguy kills all 3 of them in self-defense. Of course, the townspeople don't see it that way, so now you're on the lam. Things will very rapidly start to deteriorate from there as time marches on. An outbreak of a mysterious plague will start to dominate your time, and amongst trying to solve the various plot threads throughout each in-game day, you'll be in a constant uphill battle to keep the notable members of the town healthy and keeping yourself alive. You have 12 days to cure the plague and save the town. In an effort to avoid spoiling as much as I can, I'm going to try and focus solely on gameplay and presentation. That said though, it's basically a guarantee that you'll see or hear me spoil something throughout this video, so I'm begging you. If anything I've said so far has made your ears perk up, please go and play this for yourself. I would hate to cheapen the experience for you. Pathologic 2 is a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to its audio. For one, it has an incredible soundtrack. Voice acting for primary characters is well performed and fitting for each, although the game is primarily text-based, so you won't be hearing them all the time.
He would have done the same. A lone teacher, taking it all upon himself.
On the other hand, though, the rest of the audio leaves something to be desired. NPC chatter is incredibly muffled, to the point that it's difficult to make out what they're saying.
I can't hear you!
Sounds in combat are passable, but nothing spectacular. Guns in particular are lackluster, with the revolver being outright jarring. Either the sounds are highly compressed compared to the others in the game, or 2 audio tracks are playing whenever I reload. Judge for yourself. You'll also hear the same repeated lines from muggers over and over when they spot you. Here's something I find funny. If you encounter NPCs fighting with one another in melee, you likely won't hear anything at all unless you're standing right next to them. Instead, you'll stand there and watch them silently punch and stab each other. Combat sounds don't propagate very far, so it's pretty noticeable. If a Gopnik stabs a man in town and I'm the only one to hear it, do they make a sound? No. Visually, Pathologic 2 looks fantastic. High-resolution textures and some excellent lighting really heightens the atmosphere. The character designs, by and large, look great, though something I've seen a lot of people complain about over the years is the lack of NPC models. Outside of major characters, a lot of the townsfolk reuse the same models, but personally, I don't mind it. One of Pathologic's core themes is the theater, or theatrics, to the point that literal stage lights will appear from above when the game wants to draw your attention to something. A repeated theme throughout the game is that we're all just actors performing our roles, so I think it's quite fitting that the same actors reappear constantly to play the parts of NPCs on the street. But I can still totally understand the criticism. The town on the Gorkin itself is full of mystery and is a joy to explore. The majority of buildings look like something out of the 1800s, but they're surrounded by buildings like the cathedral, abattoir, or the staircases to nowhere. Let's not forget about the polyhedron, an inconceivably strange and otherworldly structure that towers over the rest of the town. A bastion for the town's children, its creators not even sure how it remains in the air unaided. Pathologic 2 also excels during its more surreal or horror-centric moments, with great use of both its visuals and sound to draw you in. For an example, every single night there's a new performance at the theater that talks about the events of the day and predicts the future, often with Artemy and the rest of the cast of characters discussing how awful everything is without any input from you. Guys, I'm standing right here. I don't know who this guy on the stage is, but I'm here. Or how about the various dreams Artemy has each time you sleep? Or... well, that was something. Pathologic 2 is primarily a game about survival. You're one of the last remaining doctors in town, and you have to manage your own needs first before you can take care of anyone else. That means keeping yourself fed, hydrated, well-rested, and, I don't know, maybe free of the plague that's killing absolutely everyone? Sure, finding food isn't too difficult, but having the means to pay for that food, or trade for it, is another thing entirely. As time progresses, the scarcity of resources changes. You'll face a new survival challenge each and every day, and time isn't stopping to accommodate you. On top of your own needs, you'll be frantically traveling across town to give aid or complete quest lines, and if you don't, well, those opportunities will fade away. The urgency to complete as many quests as you can, as well as keep as many of the notable members of the town alive, is helped in no small part by the quality of the writing. Each major character is full of personality and intrigue, and the fact that you can and will fail quests, and that the people who you will come to care about will die without your help is incredibly gripping. Keep in mind that you have to do all of this while also caring for yourself. It's because of this that Pathologic 2's survival mechanics never become dull. You're always low on something, and the clock is always ticking. You can spend several hours stocking up on food, or running across town to treat someone who's infected, or picking herbs to brew tinctures, but that's time you need to be doing everything else. Resource management is a huge part of the game, but so is time management. Failure to manage either will cause suffering, either to you or others. Whole plot threads can simply vanish because you can't be in two places at once, and this is just excellent. It creates an ever-present bed of tension that is inescapable. It's pretty hard to articulate just how deep this game will embed itself in your brain if you let it, so let me use an example. On day 3, food prices have nearly tripled, and the first signs of a major outbreak are beginning to show. If you're taking care of Notkin and his gang of Soul and a Halves, they'll send someone to find you and summon you to the warehouse that they hang out at. Patches, a member of their group, a young boy, is sick, and they're all terrified he'll die. Now, if you're new to the game, it's unlikely that you'll have everything you need to treat Patches immediately, so you may, like I did, spend the majority of the day trying to gather the materials you need just so you have a chance of saving this child. All of this is a race against the clock. Patches doesn't have long. So, you do it. You manage to scrounge up enough parts, fix your alembic, brew some tinctures, find enough morphine for the pain, and you may just have a chance. You race to the warehouse as fast as you can. The hour is late, and you're worried it will all be for nothing. You've ignored plot threads and the fact that you still don't have enough food to make it through the day, but it'll all be worth it if you can pull this off. That final trip to the warehouse is like having a knife twisted in your guts. Will you make it in time? Is it already too late? If you get there and Patches is still alive, can you even cure him? This uncertainty and anxiety is the heart of the game. You're ultimately under no obligation to do any of this. You could just let Patches die, but you're a doctor. Are you really willing to let a child die and do nothing? If you found yourself in this situation in real life, what would you do? Pathologic 2 will make you feel things that no other game can, and the level of satisfaction you'll gain when you do pull it off, when against all odds, you do save someone from the plague, or at least keep them alive for one more day, is beyond rewarding. And it's because the game will hand you none of this. It's for the same reason that it hurts so much when someone under your care doesn't make it. On top of this, your actions affect the world around you. Dialogue choices really do matter, and will affect your relationships with characters across the town. This will dictate whether they're willing to help you, share information and resources, or just straight up lie to you to waste your time. Each district of the town has a reputation level associated with it. Doing positive things like giving a random woman an immunity booster or treating the sick laying on the sidewalk can improve your reputation, along with completing quests or, hell, just talking to the locals. Doing negative things like stealing, beating people up, or, I don't know, murdering them and selling their organs on the black market tends to make people mad. Your reputation will impact whether people in the district are willing to trade with you, or if the local officers will beat you into a bloody pulp every time they spot you. Not being able to barter with people is a huge problem because, well, bartering's your friend. Every single NPC has specific wants and needs. Bartering items of interest to them can massively improve the trades you make. Not every NPC wants every item, and they'll value some items much more than others. The anxiety and uncertainty of the game follows you here also. Is it worth trading your healing items for that smoked fish? You are quite hungry after all. Would you give a knife to a kid if he had an immunity booster that you need? Let me tell you, I'd take that trade anytime. That's right, folks. Pathologic 2 encourages you to trade knives to children for your own
Personal gain.
Anyway, where was I? Trading and bartering is subject to the state of the town around you. As the days progress, more and more of the town is afflicted by the plague, and areas previously ravaged by it are left decimated. Meaning you're gonna have a hard time finding children to trade acorns to. The infected districts make it a hell of a lot more likely that you'll develop a chest cold, and the decimated districts are extremely dangerous thanks to Boris and his friends looting from everywhere and everyone in sight. Thankfully you can defend yourself, but the weakest area of Pathologic 2's gameplay would have to be the combat. Combat is a costly, unforgiving affair, and it also doesn't feel great. Now, I'm not in the camp of it's fucking awful, like so many comments on forum posts would have you believe, but it would be a lie to say it's good. Fighting in melee feels sluggish. Guns have a tendency to miss altogether at close range, and if you realize partway through a fight that you're screwed and need to run, prepare to get grabbed from behind by Ivan and put into an early grave. However, I'd argue this is actually a good thing in terms of preserving the game's tension. Because combat is unreliable and dangerous, you're encouraged to avoid it. That's not to say you can't get really good at it and learn the timings of everything you're going to face out there, but it's a hell of a lot easier and safer simply to run away or sneak past threats. To pile on, if you do die, you lose all your current progress, and you're penalized for it across all the saves of your current playthrough. You can't simply load an old save and avoid your mistakes. Those penalties range from tangible things like having less overall health to intangible consequences, like a tiny rat man escaping from the theater and running around the town. What's he gonna do?
Good. Sarah Wobstone.
It's also entirely possible to find yourself stuck in a loop of endless deaths. This happened to me on my first playthrough of the game, and it was super frustrating when I first encountered it. Not only was I being permanently penalized for dying repeatedly, but I had no clear option outside of restarting the day, which I eventually did. At which point, I did better and made it through the rest of the game without anything similar occurring. So yeah, as much as it feels shitty to lose progress and have to load an old save, don't be afraid to do it, otherwise life might get even harder for you. Thankfully, the game keeps every single save point you make, so you can revert as far back as you want to. As negative as all that sounds, having to make manual saves at the clocks across the town amplifies the tension even further. There are real stakes, real losses around every corner. If it's not already clear to you, this game is definitely not for everyone, and that's okay. Not every game needs to be made for everyone. In fact, appealing to the broadest possible demographic often results in a worse quality experience. Hell, just look at any Ubisoft game. Pathologic 2 is unapologetically cruel, and I love it for it. It wants to make you feel like you're just another person in incredibly desperate circumstances, and I think it absolutely achieves that. If my incoherent rambling has intrigued you, straight up, go and buy this game. Like, stop what you're doing and go pick up and play one of the most engrossing experiences to exist in the medium of video games. It might not be for you in the end, but if you stick with it and come out the other side, you likely won't be able to stop talking about it. Much like me. Pathologic 2 is probably the most unique game I've ever played. Its storytelling, themes, and gameplay all complement each other in a way very few games have ever achieved. The fact that the game can get your heart rate up while you're simply walking from place to place is a testament to its excellent writing, and how its gameplay mechanics help ground you in the world and its characters. It has affected me in a profound way, and it has changed my understanding of what video games can even be. Even now, after everything I've just said, I still feel like I've utterly failed to convey just how I feel about it. Pathologic 2 will truly transport you to a different world if you let it. It'll test you, and sometimes it'll test your patience. It's rewarding beyond any mere words of mine can describe, and it's an experience that I can't get out of my brain. Now, I don't normally do this, but if you still need more convincing, I've got a few recommendations from creators who are far more talented than I am. I highly recommend you check out Hbomberguy's excellent video covering the first game in much more detail than anything you'll find here, or for a more traditional video review, MandaloreGaming's excellent videos on both Pathologic 1 and Pathologic 2. Anyway,
And that's all I have to say about that.